Okay, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is install Visual Studio Code, which basically is just a text editor that allows us to write code. And it has all of these cool extensions, and it just makes it very easy for us to write code. Now, there are different alternatives out there, like Atom and Sublime Text, but Visual Studio Code is just so lovely to use. So that's what we're going to be using for this one. But after a while, if you want, you can feel free to switch to anything else. But for now, we're going to use Visual Studio Code. So just go to your Google and write Visual Studio. It should be, let's take a look. Make sure you write Visual Studio Code, because there's another one specifically for .NET to write C# code. And we don't want that. We want Visual Studio Code. So make sure you get that one. All right, I'm on Windows, so you can get Windows, but if you are on Mac, on Linux, this is pretty much available everywhere for you. So let's get the stable build, hit download. We're gonna get the file here. We're gonna keep it. Let's open this up. We're gonna hit accept on this page, hit next. We can leave the default, hit next. All right, just next again. We can also create a desktop icon here, and make sure you also have add to path here checked. Okay, then we're gonna do next and install, and that should be it. Pretty simple. Next up, what we're gonna do is take a look at the interface a bit, and also take a look at some extensions to make writing code a bit easier. Okay, so here we are. This is what you're probably gonna get when you open up VS Code the first time, and it's pretty simple. There's not much to it, as you can see. The most that we're going to spend our time in is going to be this Explorer. So here is where our files and folders are going to be. Then we have the search. So later on in our code, if we want to search for something specific, we can do that here. And we can also replace it too. These two we're not going to cover yet because they're not going to be helpful for us for now. But then we have this marketplace here, so the extensions. And here we can basically add different functionalities to our VS Code. And we can also add some themes and new icons if we prefer. So I'm going to add a few, and I'm kind of going to explain what they do. The first one is I kind of want to change the color of this. I'm not a huge fan of it. If you want, you can leave it like this. But I'm going to change mine. So what I'm going to search for is material theme. And this one is a pretty nice looking one. So it's the first one here. It's by Mattia Astorino. I'm sorry if I misspelled your name, but you're gonna hit install here. I'm just gonna enable it. And then what you can do is set color theme here. All right, you can click that. And then you have all of these different themes. What I'm gonna set it to is this Pellinite high contrast. I believe this looks very good. I like the way it looks. So I'm gonna keep this one. Another one is going to be the one below it, the material icon theme. This just changes up the icons. Again, this is just super optional. You don't really have to install it, but I'm going to install it. Okay, and then we're going to choose material icon theme here. Another way you can access, if maybe you want to change it again, is you can go to the wrench down here and go to the command palette. And for some reason, when you're in the extensions here, it closes, it's bugging out. I'm not sure why, but if we close this up, it should open up now. And here you can search for color theme, okay? You can just type in here, or maybe it might pop up here, but if it doesn't, you can search color theme, and here later on, you can pick one that you like. Okay, so those are the first two. Now I'm gonna install just one more, and then throughout the course, we might add another one or two to it, okay? But these two I wanna change, and there's another one that's very important, which is gonna be live server. So make sure you search for live server. It's gonna be this one by Ritwik Bay with 3 billion downloads, and make sure to install that as well. And that's gonna be it. We're gonna close this up. And let's start writing our first HTML code. Hey, exciting. So right now I'm on my desktop here in my file structure. What we're going to do is just create a new folder and create our first HTML file and our first HTML tag. So what we're going to do is go up here to File, and what we're going to do is go to Open Folder, and then I'm going to just navigate to Desktop, okay? And in here, I'm going to create another folder, and I'm going to name it HTML and CSS course. Okay, and we're gonna open this up. I'm gonna select the folder and click. As you can see, this brings us in here, and there's nothing in the folder, so that's good. I'm gonna close this welcome message. Get out, we don't want you. And to create a new file, we can go up here. So as you can see, this is a new file. Here, the second one is a new folder. Here, what we can also do is refresh the Explorer in case something doesn't update properly. But to be honest, I never really used this. It always kind of worked fine for me. And we also have this to collapse this whole structure. So what we're going to do is click the new file, and we're going to name this index.html. So this is how we can create our first HTML file. Now, why do we name it index? The extension, okay, it's kind of obvious. We're learning HTML, so it's probably .html, but why index? Well, when we upload our website to a web server, the first thing that that web server is going to do is it's going to look for this specific name. It's going to look for index, not .html, for the index. As soon as it recognizes that, that's the first thing it's going to display, because eventually we can have multiple HTML files in here. We can have maybe an about.html, maybe we have an about section on our page, so we can have that, maybe a contact.html. But as soon as we upload it online, the first thing that the users are going to be served is this index.html. So this is going to be always the default. All right, so you're going to mostly create index.html when you create your website. So let's delete this for now. We're just going to keep the index. And just to keep this simple, we're just going to write one HTML tag in here. And then we're going to set up a proper layout, or kind of a structure that you're going to be using for all of your websites. And then I'm also going to show you a shortcut that's very awesome in VS Code. That's just going to make it super fast, and you're going to be up and running in 2 seconds. Okay, Ed, stop talking. Show me how to do this. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to write a smaller than sign and H1. And as you can see, this is basically a heading on your website. So this is how it looks. Now, VS Code automatically completes it for us, so it tries to help us, but let me kind of get rid of it. So this is what a HTML tag is, all right? And we can close this up. The second one kind of looks the same, but we have an additional slash here, like this. All right, so it kind of looks like a sandwich. Not a Subway sandwich, but just a normal sandwich. So basically, whatever you put in between here is going to be displayed on the screen. So whatever you put in between these HTML tags. So in this case, let's just put hello, sandwich boy, like that, and hit save. So I can do Control Save. Okay, and now to visualize this on the screen, what we can do is hit the right click and then hit Open with Live Server. And that's gonna put it up on the screen here for us. Let me drag the screen on the side of the page. That doesn't work. Okay, let me just do this. And as you can see, we have a heading that says, hello, sandwich boy. So everything worked. Okay, now this is super basic. So in the next section, we're gonna set up a proper structure. Okay, if you've seen this, you probably get an error message here with this yelling at you saying, live reload is not possible without body or head tag. Oh my goodness, leave me alone, why you do this? So basically it's telling you that, hey, this needs a proper structure. So you kind of need to define a HTML tag. And there's something else called a head and a body. So I'm going to kind of explain everything as we go on. So the first thing we need to do is basically specify to the browsers that, hey, we are working here with a HTML document. So the way we can do that is there's a special tag here called, you do an exclamation point and you can see doc type like this, and you can write HTML. Okay, so you don't need to kind of memorize this. This is just a thing that we do once, and that's kind of it. All right, so this is, you can imagine that this is just one type thing. We never really go back to this, and we're gonna do it in all of our pages, so don't really worry too much about this. Okay, but essentially what it's saying is, yo, I'm a HTML document, so very cool. Okay, so here's where we're going to see the sandwich effect with these HTML tags. So what we're going to do is define our HTML document. Now here's a cool trick. You can hit tab and that's automatically going to complete everything. So you just write HTML and tab. And the same thing works with the H1 as well that we saw. Okay, so this basically takes two things. So this is our documents, our HTML document. And this has a head. I'm going to hit tab again. And also a body, which I'm going to do down here. All right, so as you can see, these are kind of separate. This is kind of like the parent element to these two children in here. Okay, and what this head is basically where your meta information goes in, your title that you see displayed on the website, so up here in the corner, and things of that sort for search engine optimization, for Google to find your page, to index your page. And also you're going to see that here is where we're going to link our CSS and our fonts and things of that sort. Okay, so things that are kind of in the background that we don't necessarily see on the screen. And the body basically holds all the information that we do see on the screen. So for now, let's just do one here. I'm going to say title and I'm going to say David or Sandwich Boy. Let's go back to the Sandwich Boy. Okay, so that's one here. All right, so if we hit save, all right, let's see if this refreshes automatically. Okay, there we go, Sandwich Boy we have there. Okay, and whatever we put in our body here, so I'm gonna just write a H1 sandwich and hit save, control save, and you're gonna see this popping up here. So the main part of your website is gonna be in this body, and all the rest is gonna be in the head, the information about the website, linking style sheets and things of that sort, fonts. Okay, but you probably saw that when I tabbed this over like this and I hit save, it automatically reloaded and made it nice for me. So even if I have these extra spaces, it kind of organizes everything for me. So let's introduce another extension. This one is called Prettier. So go here to the extension tab and search for Prettier. Prettier, like this. Click on this one, it looks like this, hit install, and once you do that, what you can do is go to the wrench tool here, go to settings, and you can search format, and you can enable this format on save. And basically it formats the code for you if a formatter is available. So Prettier is a formatter. And it's just going to keep your structure very organized, even if you write sloppy code or you kind of give random spaces here. So this kind of looks hard to read, but when you save, it does it automatically for you. And it's kind of nice because you can see what parent is whose parent and who are the children. So I know that the head is the parent of the title and the body has a parent of H1. Okay, so this kind of keeps everything nice. Okay, next up, what I want to show you is a bunch of awesome meta tags that we can add to our head here. So again, just a few more things that are not visible, and then we're going to get straight into the fun, I promise. So here, what we can do is add some SEO that's going to improve our search engine optimization. All right, so our website is going to be more easy to find. So we added one, which is the title here. And actually, you can make this longer like this. David, professional cooking boy. I just added this for fun. And as you can see, it updated right there. You can also view this on a bunch of websites. If you search like YouTube here, you're going to notice that the title, well, they just have YouTube. But okay, let's search another one, Amazon. As you can see, Amazon online shopping for electronics apparel. So it has a pretty long title. Okay, so let's add another one. The other one we're going to add is called Meta, and hit tab. But as you can see, this one is actually doesn't have this closing tag like H1 or like title. It's just like Meta. And that's it. So you're gonna find some tags that do close, some that don't close, and I don't really want you to beat your head over and like sweat and invest a lot of time in remembering which tags close and which tags don't. So what I recommend you to do is just hit tab, just write H1 tab, and VS Code is automatically going to know what to do. So this way you're going to write them and you don't have to worry about it. And if you keep writing more HTML, you are going to remember it because you keep using them a lot. So it's going to go into your memory. So don't really sweat about which tags close, which tags don't. Just hit tab and let the autocomplete do it for you, and then yeah, it's just, you're just gonna remember it easier this way. So meta, another thing I want to introduce you is if we come here after, right inside this tag here and just add a space, we can add something called an attribute. And all an attribute is, it just basically changes the behavior of the meta tag that you are on. And you're gonna see this being used a ton, especially here when we're in the body and we're gonna add inputs and we're gonna add a bunch of other things. We're gonna add a bunch of attributes in here that's gonna change the behavior, or maybe just give a name to our tags. So let me show you what I mean. In the meta, we're gonna add an attribute called name. And we're gonna set this equal to description. So this is a meta that's gonna handle the description on our page. So if I'll go back to the Amazon, if I still have it open, let me go amazon.com and pull it up here on the screen. So as you can see, it has a description down here. So that's gonna be our meta tag. And here we can add another attribute called content. All right, and here, if we hit enter, it's, as you can see, auto completes it for us, just like it did before here. We just set it equal and we just add 2 quotes, okay? And here we can say dev ed is a professional cook with Italian dish expert. I don't know, I'm really bad at adding these. But if you do a portfolio or something, you're probably going to mention a lot of keywords here like front-end web developer, HTML and CSS, and things of that sort. Okay, but a title is still going to be way more important than this description meta tag. But it's very good to add this as well. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is going to be a bit weird, but I'm going to write it down here for you. You're going to say meta, and the attribute is going to be called character set. Okay, and we're going to set this equal to UTF-8. This is something, again, I don't really want you to worry about that much, but it's pretty much an encoding. It's an encoding that our browser can understand. So basically all the words like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and these symbols like $, and these symbols is basically you're telling the browser what kind of character set to use and encoding to use. You can kind of hover over this car set and you can and you can see kind of more of the meaning. It's not that clear. The attribute declares the page characters encoding and must contain standard Yanamine name for, yeah, it's a bit weird. But all it basically is just an encoding that recognizes the characters that we generally use here, especially in Europe or US, right? It's not Chinese characters or any other things like of that sort. Okay, so again, this is just something we add. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but it's good to have it here. Okay, so that's another one. Let's do another one. We're gonna say meta again. All right, we're gonna come here, and this one is gonna be called robots. Now it's not as cool as it sounds, unfortunately. But what the robots meta tag does, it basically provides instructions to the web crawlers whether to index your web page or not. So it has an easier time finding your web page, or you can declare it for it to not be visible if you don't want it to. So the way we can add this is we can go meta here, and we can say, let's say name, just like we did with the description, and set this equal to robots. And then the content here is basically going to be, I mean, you can do 2 things here. You can say index and follow, or optionally you can say no index and no follow, but I wouldn't recommend that anyways. So basically what follow does, basically the search engine crawler will follow all the links in that web page. Okay, and the index is the crawler will index your whole web page. Okay, so you add this, and it just helps out the crawlers. It's gonna find your web page easier, and you're probably gonna appear on Google faster. Okay, so that's another one. I kind of want to change this little logo here because I don't really like it. This is just the default that it gave to us, but I don't like the globe. I don't want to be Mr. Worldwide. I want to have my own. How can I change that? Well, what we can do is we can go to Google again, our dear friend, and we can search for some icons. So what we can do is we can say .ico files here. And I don't remember the name, icons-icons. This was the website. They kind of provide you some simple icons here. Let's just use one just for fun. Let's go to this one. And I don't know, which one do you like? I like the little house. I want to get the house. So let's go on the house, and we're going to download this ICO file. Okay, so hit on that. It should download for you. And after it does, we're just going to drag it in here, drop it in here. And now what we're going to do is right here, we're going to say link this time, not meta anymore. And as you can see, the link element allows you, we're not going to hit tab here. And I'll tell you why. If we hit tab, it's automatically going to generate us this rel style sheet href thing. Now, it does this because it's very commonly used to link our style sheet. So this link thing, you basically use to connect your CSS to your HTML, or to connect different things to your HTML. However, I don't want to do the CSS right now, but this is kind of similar to the way you attach a logo. So all we do is we have this attribute rel here. I'm actually not going to delete it. And as you can see, it's just the attribute's name, a relationship of the linked document to the current document. The attribute must be space, separate links. Okay, so I think they even have a link type here. So let's open up. Let's actually see what they show us. Okay, we have author, bookmark. There's a bunch of here, but look, there's one called icon. So we can replace that with icon because that's what we have. And href is basically gonna be the URL or the location of our icon. And the way we can find that is we can just add a slash, and that's automatically gonna pull up the whole file structure that we have in the left, and we can just click on it and hit Control Save and take a look. We have our little house. Yay! Thank you so much. That's so cool. It's so cozy already. And our HTML is empty. But hey, it's a good step. There's one last one I want to introduce you, which can be a bit kind of weird, but it's very, very helpful. So we're going to say meta. All right, we're going to click on it. And then we're going to say name. And this is going to be viewport. Okay. And the content is going to be equal, just follow along with me here a bit. It's going to be weird. We're going to say width equal to device width. And then we're going to add a comma, and we're going to say initial, let me make sure initial dash scale is going to be equal to 1. All right, let me make more space here so you guys can see. Okay, here we go. So initial scale 1. Okay, so this kind of looks weird, but all it does is, well, like 10 years ago, websites weren't really made for mobile. It was all desktop. So what this helped with is it basically scaled the website all the way up till it filled the whole screen for maybe a smartphone or something. So as you can see, you can kind of read it. Width equals device width. So the width of the website should be the width of the device. And the scale should be basically so you can see the whole content. So it should be scaled like 1 and not zoomed in like this or zoomed out like this. It should be fit perfectly. And I actually want to show you a quick example here. And I quickly want to show you this example right here on V3 Schools, which is a really good resource. As you can see, without the viewport meta tag, this is how our content looks on a mobile screen. However, if we add the viewport meta tag, it makes it more responsive. It takes advantage of the full space of the device, of the width of the device. So that's it. We just usually add this as well without actually worrying about it. And there we go. We have a proper structure of our website. Now you're gonna be mad at me because I'm gonna show you a cool new trick to set this up from scratch super fast. So I'm gonna delete everything here. I'm just gonna cut it out and take a look right here. If I hold Shift and press 1, we're gonna add an exclamation point. I'm gonna hit Tab and take a look. That's automatically gonna generate us this whole structure. There we go. Look how quickly we can do this. Just Shift Tab and boom, we have our boilerplate generated. Now it doesn't actually add those other meta tags like the ones that we had here, like the robots and the icon and the description here. But I kind of wanted to show you the two ways we can do it. You can add it after if you want, but I'm gonna stay with our original one that we have. Let's take a look at some fairly common HTML elements that we use. So we did the H1, which is heading 1. Now there are a few others. There's H2 as well. And let's say hello there. And as you can see, this is gonna be smaller and it goes all the way to 6. So we can, there's actually a cool trick you can do. You can hold Shift Alt and press down on your arrow key. And we can rename this to H3, H4, H5, and H6. So let's do that really quickly. Oh my goodness, there we go. H3. And as you can see, my Visual Studio Code editor auto completes the last thing if I want to change it to. So if I change this to H4, it changes automatically there too. H5 changes there automatically as well. And this is again just a small little extension that you can add if you go to the marketplace here. And you can search auto rename tag and install that. Auto rename tag here. Install it and you are ready to go. So H5 and let's do H6 as well. Let's also copy this and just say hello there. So these are all the different headings that you can use. I'm gonna zoom in a bit here so you can see. Okay, and basically you would use these as titles, you would use these as logos, and also what I want to clarify is that the importance matters here. So heading 1 is way more important than a heading 3 or a heading 4. Okay, so to give a proper example, let's go and navigate to a website and see what's up. Here is a quick example that I want to show you. On this website, you can use the headings to give importance to the things that you have on the page. So maybe the logo here towards data science can be a heading 1 because that is very important. This site of your name is very important. So you would add it as a heading. The title of this article can be a heading 2 because it's still very important. You might want this to show up in search results. And then you have some paragraphs going on here. And if you go down, this might be a heading 3. So it's kind of like a subtitle and another heading 3, another heading 3. Okay, so you basically have one important title up here, and then you would go down in the headings and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's a very quick example on headings. We're gonna obviously implement this in our website. And as you can see, besides these headings, we also have paragraphs. I'm gonna get rid of all of those. We're just gonna have the H1 to create a paragraph. What you're gonna say is just say P and hit tab, and boom, we have a paragraph element. So here, again, hello there. This could be just some normal text. And there we go. You could use this. Now I'm zoomed in, so it's probably not as big for you. So let me zoom out, something like this. And as you can see, the browser also puts like a basic font size on it. It styles it a bit for you. This is bold. It just creates some basic styles. And it kind of varies from browser to browser. As you can see, there's also some space in here. If I duplicate this paragraph and hit save, the space in between these are not necessarily exactly the same as with the header. So as you can see, the space is bigger here. So the browser does do some basic styling automatically for you. And I also want to point out, when we are going to get to styling, you don't really want to use headings just to give your text some bold font to it or make it larger. All right, that's not why we use headings. Headings should be used to give importance of the structure of our HTML and the importance of the text on our website. That's why you use the headings. All right, you wouldn't use a paragraph as the title of maybe an article post, okay? Because we can style this if we want to look like this. That wouldn't be a problem. And also, you might just want some bigger text. I don't want you to straight up jump to heading just because it gives this automatic styling for you. Really, I want to show you some elements that help us format our text here and our heading and everything else. So what we can do is we can actually wrap. So we can go in the paragraph here and we can wrap something inside another tag. So again, we can do this nesting that we kind of already did in here. We have the body, right? That's the parent element. And then we have all of these small ones nested inside. Same thing I can do here with the paragraph. I can nest another element inside here. So maybe I want to make this last one italic. Okay, so this could just be some normal text. I want to make this italic. So what I can do is go here and just add a space. I'm going to say I and hit tab. As you can see, that's going to generate it for me. And I can take the ending closing tag and just wrap it around this like this. So this looks a bit weird, but it's actually very simple. You just have the paragraph and then you just wrap the following text that you have inside this I. And if we hit save, as you can see, I'm going to zoom in a bit here, that's going to make it italic. Now there's a bunch of them. Let's replace this with strong. Hit save. As you can see, that's going to make it bold for us. So there's a bunch of them here. I'm not going to go through all of them because we're not going to be using these as much as you might be thinking. But let me just show you a few for fun. There's one called small. And as you can see, it kind of pulls it up here for you. You can kind of see what it does. Represents a side comment such as a small print. So if we hit save, we have this. We have small. We also have mark. Let's hit save. And as you can see, this kind of marks it like with a pen, with a blue, not blue, it's yellow, with a yellow marker. It's kind of like you've drawn over it to mark it. There is also one delete, which is kind of gonna cross it out like that. And there's just a bunch of them that you can use. But again, we're rarely gonna use this. We're not gonna be using it as much, but if you ever need it, you know at least what to look for. You can just search up a formatting for the text. Next up, let's take a look at some images that we can add to this little website that we made here. There's not that, it's not amazing, but hey, we are getting there. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you a cool website for images. It's called Pexels, and they have some very high quality images. So let's search for one to add. Autumn mood. It's almost winter here, but hey, oh, never mind. This is like a photo submission thing. Okay, let's move on. Hey, who doesn't like mountains? Everybody likes mountains. I've never been to, actually I've been to like one or two, not too big of a mountain, but okay, this lady on the mountain, take a look at that. Very nice. The boat is underneath, perfect. So it actually gives you multiple sizes here. I'm gonna get a medium one and hit download. And all I wanna do is just drag this inside the folder here. Now, I don't have that open, so let me open this up. I just closed it so I had extra space and drop it in there. Perfect. So we can close this up. Let's make the screen bigger here. Now, as you can see, the file structure already starts getting a bit weird. So what you can do is actually create a folder here, new folder, and we are going to name this image like this, shorthanded image. Perfect. So now we can take the woman with the boat and the birdhouse and just drag it in there. And then it's going to say, hey, are you sure you want to move it in there? And you're going to be like, do not ask me again, please, and then move it there. Perfect. Okay, let's refresh, but take a look, our icon is gone. Why? Well, because we gave it a path here that's not there anymore. So if we add a slash now, as you can see, there's no image there. So it automatically is going to be like, oh, I don't know what to do, goodbye. It's not even going to bother looking for it. Oh my goodness, Mr. HTML, why you do this to us? Why you do this? So what we need to do is navigate to the image and now hit the birdhouse, and then we're going to get the logo back, the icon back. Okay, great. So let's put the image here. How do we do that? I'm going to close this up here just so we have more space. And all we have to do is going to be very simple. Just hit enter. And we're going to say image, and we're going to hit tab again. Okay, and take a look. This is, again, one of those elements that are that doesn't have a closing to it. It's just simple like this, and it's gonna give us an alt and a source. I'm gonna delete this alt because we're gonna cover this in another section, but all it means, to quickly explain it to you, it's just an alternative text for the people who cannot view this image. Maybe the image doesn't load, maybe people cannot see the image for various reasons, so you can add a description here to whatever you have on the image. Okay, you basically describe the image in words. But for now, we're going to remove it. We're going to get back to it, so don't worry. But we have this attribute called source, which kind of works the same way as this link thing. So you just add the path to the image that you want to use, source, and as you can see, we have the woman standing on the cliff. So we're gonna hit Control Save and take a look. We have this. Now it's gonna put it in the original file size, so it's gonna be extra large here. As you can see, we can scroll and go crazy. Now there are a few attributes that you can also add here to make this smaller. So you can actually set a height and a width to it. This later on, we're going to do it in CSS, but for now, take a look just to make this a bit more more pleasurable to look at. We can just add a width of 300, for example, or 500, and a height of, let's say, 1000. Okay, let's see if that's too large. Okay, this kind of looks a bit squished. As you can see, it doesn't look that nice. So let's change the height to 800 maybe. Okay, we're getting there. Let's do 700. That's going to be fine. So there we go. That's kind of the original aspect ratio of the image. Perfect. So looking good. Okay, let's quickly jump into the video. So to add a video, you can say video, and we can hit tab. And as you can see, it automatically gives us a source. I can just say // and I have a video here with my cat. So there she is. She's doing mischief. She's very bad, but she's cute. Okay, so this is super large again. So what we can do is just add some attributes here, like height. I'm gonna give it this 500 and add a width of something like 1000. Hit save. Okay, made it small again. Well, I cannot play this, and it's just a picture. So what we can do is, I want controls. I want to be able to play this, scroll through this, and make this full screen and things of that sort. So to do that, we can actually add an attribute called controls. Controls, there we go, hit save and take a look. Now we can play the video. Let me make this a bit larger. We can skip forward. We can also mute the sound if we want. This video doesn't really have any sound, and we can also full screen this. So hey, everything works perfect. Okay, so that's pretty much the video there for you. You can also autoplay this if you want. So when the page loads up, you can just say autoplay. We can add this attribute, hit save, and boom, there we go. It autoplays for us. I wouldn't really recommend doing this if you just have videos laying around here, but it might work well if you want to do it as a presentational style. Maybe you have a website where you have those big, large videos playing in kind of like in the background, just as a visual aesthetic. So that kind of works. Okay, but hey, we have this as well. There's so much we can do with video. Now, actually, what we can do is we cannot, if we want, we can not give the source here on video. We can actually provide, so let me remove this. We can actually provide a source in here. So I'm gonna open up the video. Let me just close this, make more space. I'm going to open up here. So we are inside the video tag, and here I can provide multiple sources if I want. I can say source and set the source here to video MP4. And I can also add the type of video .mp4 -mp4 to make it clear. So what's the deal with this? Well, it's generally kind of the same thing, but if you have maybe the MP4 might not be supported. So what you can do is you can add multiple sources here, and the ones that's going to be supported is going to play. Okay, so you can add multiple formats of your video just in case it's not going to work. But generally, you can be fine just using the video here without the source. And the most common types of supported video formats are MP4, WebM, and OGG. So as long as you use those, you're probably going to be fine. Okay, next up, what I want to do is actually clear everything up here because it's starting to get kind of messy. So let's remove the video, the images. Actually, we cleared the whole body, okay? Everything is removed. So Control Save, and that's gonna get rid of everything. So I want to show you how links work. So let me just add a H1 here. So we do have something on the screen. Hello there, link, and hit save. So we get that. And now under this, I want to add a link maybe to my YouTube, or let's just do something simple. So what I can do is I can press A and hit tab, and that's going to generate us an anchor tag. And as you can see, it has this href, which all it means is that you need to add a link, kind of like this link up here. So this can be a bit confusing here. Anchor is going to be the link that you click on to visit a page. But this link is actually different. This is basically for linking your icon or linking your style sheets in the header. So anchor is used to actually have links on your website. Okay, so let's provide one. Which one shall we do? Let me pull up, let's search for DevEd here. I'll do my YouTube channel for now, but all you have to do is just copy the link and we're gonna drop it into the A tag here and to the href, my apologies, and hit save. And you might be wondering, okay, well, there's nothing here. What is this? What is this trickery? Well, we also need to add some text here so it shows up as a link. So what we can do is say dev adds YouTube like that and hit save. There we go. And as you can see now, we have that. And as you can see, this again has some basic styling on top of it. So you have this kind of bluish color. Is it bluish? It's purplish color, and an underline there. So when we click this, it navigates to the link that we provided here. Okay, that's cool. But as you can see, it actually opens up the page here, and we left our original destination. And sometimes you don't necessarily want to do that, especially if you have a website or maybe you have your portfolio, right, and people are looking at it, and then you click on maybe a project that you made, and then they leave your website basically, right? So what you want to do is you can also click on this and it's going to open up in a new tab. So what this means is there's actually an attribute here called target. And by default, that target attribute is gonna leave the page and it's gonna just go straight to the link that you sent it. Well, we can go here to the A tag and we can say target like this. And as you can see, there are a few, it's very nice. VS Code is just fantastic. It gives you all the options that you have. So as you can see, it has self, all right? This is the default behavior. So it's gonna redirect, but then you have this blank. And all it's going to do is it's going to open up in a new tab. So this is exactly what you have to write, target and underscore blank. So let's do that. Target underscore blank. Let's hit save and see if that works. Click and take a look. We have arrived to our new page. Awesome. Now, I actually want to show you something. We can also combine the anchor tag with a link. You might not necessarily want to have text in here. You might want an image or a logo. So take a look. Let me show you something very cool. We can go to Icon Monster, and this is a website where you can get a ton of super awesome icons. And I'm going to search for YouTube here. So let's search YouTube. And let's just get this one. This is fine. I'm gonna hit OK and download. And I'm just gonna open up the file directory here and drag it inside here for now. Okay, perfect. Let's close this up. I'm also gonna get rid of this MP4. We don't need this anymore. And you know what? Let's get also rid of the images folder here. So now take a look. I can just go here and I'm not gonna add the text anymore. I'm gonna take everything out here and I'm just gonna drop in an image. So you can actually nest an image inside this anchor tag. Let me make more space here so it's a bit more visible. Okay, so let's make even more space. This link tag is a bit too long, so it's a bit, might be a bit difficult to see what's going on, but I'm just basically adding the image between the anchor tag, so in between the opening and the closing one where we add the text. So in here I'm just going to write image and hit tab, and that's going to give me a source here. Again, I'm going to talk a bit about the alt later, so let's get rid of that. But in here I can just add a slash and link to that icon monster. And as you can see, we have the button now as a logo. So when we click on this, it still works the same way, but you can also have images, PNGs, JPEGs, whatever you want here to show up as a link. So there we go. Next up, let's cover the forms, and we will actually be using one form on our first project where we are going to submit some user data and we're going to receive an email. So forms that are typically used, again, to collect some user data. So you probably know this, but whenever you sign up on a website, there's a form there. You enter your email, you enter your password, your username, and then they receive that information and they're going to create an account for you. Same thing goes with contact. When you hit submit, they're going to receive an email. So basically all it does, it collects some user data and it gets sent somewhere. It depends where, who knows. There's a lot of options you can do with forms. So how can we create a form? Well, we just use the form tag. So I'm gonna say form and hit tab. And as you can see, it automatically gives me one attribute, which is called action. We're not going to be using this for now because all this action does is it submits the form somewhere. So after we submit the form, this action gets executed. But for right now, let's remove it. We're going to add it a bit later. And in this form, we can add a bunch of different kinds of inputs. So the first one that's going to be probably the most common one is going to be called input. Type text. So if I just type input and hit tab, obviously it's going to give me the most default one, and this one's called text. So if I hit save, I can type just normal text in here. All right. So now it's very hard to see what this does because it's unclear. It doesn't have like a title or maybe a label to it. So we can actually add a label to it. So if I go up here, I can type label, and I'm going to hit tab. And as you can see, it gives me 4. All right, so for what? Well, I need it for this input. I need to describe where this label belongs to, and it's to this input. So to give an identifier to this, you just add an ID. And I can set an ID. As you can see, it's a unique identifier. And it's also heavily used to basically to modify in CSS or to identify it in JavaScript. If you want, you can use there as well. So if I give an ID here, we can access this input basically through our CSS and JavaScript. And in here, I'm just going to give it an ID of name, all right? Or user, let's call it user. I want to have the user. So I can say the label is for user. And I can add a descriptive text that you see on like every website is in this label here. I can say username. And this doesn't have to match. The text that we add here can be anything that we want. But as you can see here, I kind of keep it simplified and easy. But here I can use the full name. I can do username here as well. But I like to keep it very simple. Everything lowercase, just user. Okay? So as you can see, now we have username and we have our label and our input. So super cool. Now, besides this, the label, it's very useful because let me show you something. If I add another input here, I'm actually going to change this to type email, right? Now check this out. If I add another label here, and I'm not going to name this in any way, I'm just going to say email. All right, well, what's the difference between this and this? like these two and these two. Like what does it actually help me with by adding for user here and binding it to this input? What's the difference? Well, check this out. If I'm gonna click on email here on this label, it doesn't really do anything. I have to click in the input here. However, if you specify on the label that, hey, this is specifically for this ID of user, this input, well, if I click on the label now, it automatically jumps me into the input tab here. So boom, as you can see, it activates the input so I can start writing. So this makes it a bit more accessible and a bit more easy for the users to write the inputs. So lastly, what I want to show you, and I also want to show you the difference between text and email here, is at the end, if I just add a simple button here, and I'm going to say submit like this, and take a look. I can add a attribute of type submit, and all this is going to do is it's going to submit all the information that we have in the form. So if I hit save and I'm going to just type something and I'm going to add an email. All right, just a random old email that I have. I'm going to hit submit. Boom, the form gets submitted. Now it doesn't get submitted anywhere, unfortunately, because we don't have an action here, but it works. Then that's all that matters. So here's the difference between the type text and type email. I can add any text I want here. However, here, if I don't add an email, as you can see, we get an error here saying, please include an ad in the email address. So it doesn't actually submit the form. So HTML actually does some validation for us if we specifically specify that, hey, this is an email, okay? We only want to have an email. So the form doesn't get submitted anymore until this is actually an email. So that's super awesome. Now let's go up here to the form, and I'm actually gonna add an action, okay? And I wanna show you that we can also use action to navigate to another page. So I made a contact.html here. It's super simple. There's nothing really in it. And I can add a /contact.html. Hit save, and now take a look. Whenever I submit something, it's going to jump me over to that page. So you can also do that if you want. And this, by the way, also works with an anchor tag. So if I add an anchor tag here, and I'm going to say, link me to another page, we saw that we could have used this with links, but we can also navigate to another HTML page. So I'm going to say contact.html, and I'm also going to add a target of blank. So hit save and take a look. Even this link tag can also navigate to another HTML. So I thought I'd show you that as well. However, the way we will be using action here is we are actually going to use a third-party website, and we're going to submit the information there for them. Or later on, when you're going to work with JavaScript and Node.js, or maybe another programming language, you're going to submit this one to a specific URL. So you get that in your backend server or somewhere else. So for now, this is kind of useless for us. So we covered this, we covered the labels, we covered the inputs, and we covered the ID, which is again just used specifically so we can access this specific input in our CSS or JavaScript. Okay, and lastly, what I want to show you is something called name. So on the input here, we can also add a name called user. So I'm going to use the same as the ID here, and for the input type email, I'm also going to give a name of email. And the reason I am doing this, the only fields that get submitted in this form are the ones that have a name on it. So make sure you put a name of all the inputs that you want to submit in the form. And just to kind of quickly show you what gets submitted, if I type here add and just provide a random email, and if I hit submit, you're going to see up here in the URL, we're going to get user equals ed. And this is basically the name. So user equals, and this is the value that we gave it. And then we have email. So the name email equals edmagician@gmail.com. Okay, next up, I want to take a look at a dropdown where you can select multiple different values. To create a dropdown, all you have to do is say select, and hit tab. And now this also gives you a name and an ID. I'm just gonna call this products. All right, and I'm gonna give it an ID of product. So if we ever want to select this in our CSS or JavaScript, we also have a unique identifier. And in here, if we save this, we just have this simple drop down here, but it doesn't really do anything. So to add options, well, we just write option. That's a HTML element that we can use. And in here, I can give a name to my product. Maybe I have a MacBook. All right. So there we go, we have a MacBook. I can duplicate this, bring this down and call this an iPhone or something. Hit save and now we have 2. So there we go. And what this value does is this is actually the thing that gets submitted in the form, right? This is kind of the text that we want to give it. This can just be whatever we want. But when we hit submit, the thing that's in the value is going to be submitted in the form. So I can see MacBook 2018 like this for the value, and I can say iPhone 11 like this. So when we actually add our information here, I select MacBook, hit submit. If we expand this, you're gonna see that products is gonna be equal to MacBook 2018. So the actual value that's in here is the thing that's gonna be sent to wherever we are sending it to. Okay, but what if we want to submit a message? Having the small input is not that great because if we write a lot, we cannot really see anything else that we write, that we previously wrote, right? And I cannot add a new line. If I hit enter, then the form is getting submitted. So how can we get around that? Well, we have another element called a text area. So I'm going to just say text, and as you can see, it appears there. I'm gonna hit enter, and oh my goodness, what's going on here? Well, we know name, so I'm gonna give it a message. I'm gonna give it a message ID as well, but we have this calls and rows. So if we hit save, as you can see, now we have a multi-line element here that we can write a lot of text to. And we can also expand this if we want, like that. Take a look. That's pretty cool. There are a few attributes that we can add to these inputs, and I want to show you a quick few ones that might be useful. If we go up here to the input tag, we can also limit the number of text that we can add in here. So let's go here, and all I'm gonna do is type in max length like this. And I can set a max length equal to, I can say 12 or 16 maybe. I don't want more than 16. I'm gonna do something low like 8 for now, just so I can show you. And now if I have something superbly long, I cannot type anymore. As you can see, it limits me from typing. So you can do a limit of something like 60 here, just so it's not like super spam, or 30. And we can also do a min length here. So we can say minimum length should be at least 6 characters. So this is probably a bit more useful for you. So if I add something like 1, 2, 3 and hit submit, as you can see, it's going to give me, hey, you need 6 characters. You're using only 4 right now. So this is another great check that you can add to your text inputs if you want to limit it. So we have limited our input here for the username, and we also did it for the email. Now, if you don't want to have this autocomplete thing, you can also turn this off. I wouldn't recommend turning it off. It's a nice option to have, but you can do that as well. So if we go to the, let's see, where are you, email here, and you can say autocomplete. As you can see, you can turn that off like this. So when we go here now, it doesn't display that for us. It still displays here, but it doesn't display here anymore. You can also add the autocomplete on top of the form if you want to disable everything. So if you don't want it to appear here or either on the email, you can just go here and say autocomplete off, and that's going to get rid of everything for you. Another one that might be useful is you can also add some placeholder text in here, in the username, in the email, and in the text area. So maybe let's go here, add another attribute of placeholder. And maybe we can add something like characters should be 6 minimum or something like that. As you can see, that appears in there as well. Or I've seen some people not use the label and they just use a placeholder. To be honest, I'm not a super big fan of that, but you could say username in here. So when you click on it and you start typing, as you can see, it disappears. So it just stays there until you start typing. You might also have some elements that might not be required. It might be just optional. Maybe we want to have the username and email and the message. So we can go here and on the username, we can add a required. We can also do the same for the email here, and we can also do for the text area. So for this one, we might necessarily not even need a value selected. So what I can do is just add another option here and just leave this empty. All right, so no value and just empty. Okay, and then I'm gonna move the selected, I'm gonna get rid of it, so nothing is selected. So now if we add some text and an email, let's make this longer because I think I have that limit on, and if I submit, this is gonna work just fine. So as you can see, the value there is gonna be submitted with nothing. So let's take a look, where is it? Select products. As you can see, it doesn't have anything in the products. It's equal to nothing. Let me show you another quick one that might be useful. This one is called input type radio. So let's type in input type radio. And here again, we basically can give it a name, whatever name we want. Let's say MacBook. All right. And we can basically copy this multiple times. So like 4 times, okay? And what we can do is change the value of it. So I'm gonna say value, and this is gonna be the MacBook. All right. Now here's the interesting part. Let me also add a button type submit. Type submit. And there we go, we're gonna say submit. So here's basically the difference between this and this. This one, we want to make general, kind of what is this about? It's a product, all right? So we don't want the actual product name in here because this is the value that's gonna be submitted. So here, we're gonna actually rename this to products, like this, products. Okay, and I'm gonna copy and paste it here. This is gonna be the same value across the whole name, all right? And only the value is gonna be different. So I'm gonna say value, this one's iPhone, and let's do another one, value, I don't know. Amazon, we are buying Amazon, everybody. Value, and this is gonna be Cookboy, which is me. So let's hit save. All right, so when we're submitting this, so if I click on one and hit submit, as you can see, the products is gonna be equal to MacBook. So this is kind of a general one that we're gonna give to the name. We're gonna give it to all of them. And then this is gonna be the actual product or value that's gonna be submitted. Okay. Okay, next up, I want to cover lists, which is going to be fairly simple. So if you want to have a list of some sort, all you have to do is we're going to type in UL and hit tab. All right, and what UL is, there's basically 2 types of lists. There's ordered list and unordered list. And you're going to see the difference in a bit. This is the unordered list. So UL and ordered list would be OL. Okay, so UL for unordered and OL for ordered. And inside this UL, you basically take the individual lists that you have. So list is LI. And in here, we can say, let's say home. And there we go, we have 1. I'm gonna zoom in for this one so you can see a bit easier. And as you can see, the unordered list, all it has is basically just this simple dot here. So if I add another one, let's say contact, and hit save, and as you can see, we have that. If I change this whole thing to OL, everything is gonna be numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, you're gonna use lists often like this, but where the most common is, where you're gonna find lists the most common is in a navigation bar. I cannot speak anymore, oh my goodness, in a navigation bar. So home, contact, you might have projects, LI projects. This is where you're gonna see it most common. Now we're gonna do some CSS magic, of course, and we're gonna get rid of these numbers, or usually what we do is we just use an LI here, and then we're gonna get rid of of these. Now I have an empty one here because I accidentally added a list to another list, and that's something you can have as well. You can have multiple types of lists. So let's change this to OL again, like this. So we have 1, 2, and 3, and you might have a ordered list inside another ordered list. This is something that can happen as well. Let me copy these and paste them in here. So as you can see, if you have another list, it's just gonna kind of push it to the side. So maybe if you have like a book or something and you wanna have like chapters or something, you might have something like this. So chapter 1, like this. Chapter 1. So that's the first one. And then underneath, we might have an ordered list again, where we have LI, the homecoming, or something. I'm not sure. So there we go. Take a look. Now we have it like this, and we can have multiple ones under, and then after that we can just go outside of this ordered list and start again. LI chapter 2, and boom, we can start from here. Okay, so we can stack those together as well if we want. That's it. Lists are very simple. As you can see, they're not too hard. What we're gonna do eventually is remove these dots in CSS. And what we can do is we can also add an anchor tag inside here to actually link it to somewhere. So we can say li, and inside the li, we can add this. And maybe this navigates us to another page, like about.html. But since this is the index one, we can go to index.html like this. And you know what? When you are on the base HTML, you don't actually need to even link it anywhere. You can just add a simple slash, and that's going to recognize it that, hey, index is the home. And we can also copy the home from here and add it inside the A tag like this. So when we click this, as you can see, it brings it home. Now here, if we want to do this, let's just paste it in here. This can go to about.html, and here we can say about, and this is going to work just fine. Now it's not going to work because we don't have one. Well, we have a contact one. We can change it to that, but let me just show you really quickly. So there we go. We can go to another page very easily. Okay, let me quickly talk about comments, because this is something fairly important that a lot of people don't use, but it's very important to make your code look nice. And it doesn't actually change your code in any way, but it helps you organize everything a bit more. So comments are basically text that you add to your HTML that does not have any impact to it. So it's just something for you to know and to remember and to help out maybe other people to know what's going on in your code. So maybe I might have a section like that form that we created here, and it does something, right? So let me just add just a empty form here, and you might have some things in here, okay? So what you can do is go up here and you can leave a comment on what the functionality of this form down here is, okay? Just to make everything clear. So to create a comment, what you can do is say, you can add this arrow to the left, the arrow to the left, oh my goodness, the smaller than sign, and then the exclamation, and then you do 2 lines like this, okay? And it auto completes everything for me, but it adds 2 more lines and a bigger than sign. So basically everything that you write here doesn't matter. It's not gonna show up anywhere. As you can see, we only have these inputs. It doesn't show up, but it helps you kind of know what you did. So maybe here I can say, this is a form for submitting user or submitting a login or something, or a register, okay? So now you can have a section like this, and then you can go down here. Maybe you can add another comment like this, and then maybe you have a section here with some content, maybe some images. This is going to be an image gallery. So when you're navigating through the code, it's going to be very easy to identify these small comments and to know what the code below is doing. So it's very important. I highly recommend you to add as many codes as you want, but also keep these simple, because if you have like a super big stack of code and then you add a lot of code in between the elements as well, like this, then it can get quite messy. So try to keep them as simple as possible and as short and useful as possible. I quickly want to jump and cover tables, and I want to say quickly because it's not used as much as you might think anymore. In the early days, people would use tables to kind of organize and structure all the elements on the page. So it was used a lot for structuring and to move things in certain positions. But these days, you're going to use tables probably if you really need a table. So if you want to show like some kind of statistic or something, or you want to display some information in a table form, then you can use that. But generally, you're not going to find yourself doing this a lot. But let me show you nonetheless. So to create a table, what you can do is say table and hit tab. And inside this table, it basically takes two different elements. It takes a TR, which means table row. All right, so the horizontal ones that are gonna go this way. So inside this table row, we can add a TH like this. And let's write something in here. So let's say first name or something, okay? Okay, that's one. Let's duplicate these two more times. Let's write last name. And let's write age in here. Okay, there we go. And outside of this table row, what I want to do is add a table, another table row. And then here I'm going to say TD like this. And this is going to be ed. This is going to be you. And finally, shout out to my mom. She made the course. Yay. And hit save. So as you can see, this is basically the title, the header, the table header in here. And these are the individual values that you can provide down here. So if you want to have more of these, I'm just going to copy this table row multiple times like this, and boom, there we go. We have more. So again, this acts kind of like the title, and this is the list that you have down here with the names and with the last names and with the age. Well, age is mom, that's kind of weird. So we can change that to, how old is she? Oh, mom, I don't know, 23, 53, 23? Oh, goodness. I am 25, I believe, and you are 23, 21? Am I guessing correctly? No? Okay, so this is tables, very, very simple. If you want to have another column, you just add another one in here, like this, and you have another column. And if you want to have another value, you can add it like that, and then we can modify this to date of birth or something. And there we go. It's very simple. I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's nothing too complicated. If you ever need it though, it's not that difficult to create. And later on, we can also style this in CSS if we really want to. But that again is just, it's going to be a very, very simple process. So those are tables in a nutshell. Let's cover classes and IDs because these are so important. You're going to see that you're going to use these. Speaking other language, we're going to use these across every website. Whenever you start building your own projects, you're going to use these constantly. So they're very, very important. So what I want to show you is, hey, maybe we have some elements on the screen. Maybe we have a H1 here that might be our logo of our website. And then we might have an article here. Let's do a H2 article title like this. And then we might have some paragraphs. And we can actually generate random text here by writing lorem and typing a number. If I want 30 characters, I can type 30 and hit tab. And as you can see, that generates us some random text here. And Google Chrome is like, do you want to translate? No, I don't want to translate this. So what we can do is we can copy these multiple times. So you can kind of imagine like we have a blog or something on our website, okay? A small little blog. Okay, now when we're going to arrive to CSS, you might want to style these in certain ways. But right now, what happens if we might have some paragraph here that's totally unrelated? Maybe this is some text that has nothing to do with the articles. Well, here is where classes and IDs are going to help us. A class and an ID is basically a selector, and it allows us to select certain parts of our HTML. So later on in our CSS and in our JavaScript, we can manipulate and style in different ways. So we saw the ID before in our input, and what an ID is basically a unique identifier. As you can see, it's a unique identifier of a particular HTML element. So here, A great example is the logo here. This can be an ID. And the reason why it's special is because an ID cannot have the same name. You can have multiple IDs, but the name needs to be unique. You cannot have another H1 here with logo, okay? That's not good. You only can have one. But in classes, you can have the same name very easily. And let's take a look on how we can add a class. We just write class, so it kind of works the same way. And we can just say something like article text. And I'm gonna do it with like a small dash between, like this. All right, this is very simple and clear to read. And you usually want to give names to your classes and IDs that resemble of basically what the HTML element does. So what is this? Oh, well, it's the article text. So that's what I'm gonna name it. And also separated by a small dash here, just makes everything clear and very readable. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. This is unique. You can only have one of these. And again, a great example is maybe a logo on your website. That is probably only one, so it's very unique. So you would name it logo. And here, classes, we can have the same name added multiple times. So I can have it across all of these different paragraphs. So later on, you can imagine that we can select this class by the name article text, and we can style only these specifically. And the difference is that it's not going to affect this, right? The ones that don't have this specific class. So what we're going to do is select this class, and it's only going to style the classes or the paragraphs that have this specific class. That's kind of a tongue twister. Did that even make it? I'm not sure if that made any sense. But again, because we're going to see later on in CSS, if you just select our p tags and you want to style them, it's going to affect everything that you have, all the p tags in your HTML. However, with classes and IDs, you can select them by the name that you provide in here. Okay, and we're going to also see some differences with classes and IDs when we arrive to CSS, because there's like a specificity going on, which is more important than which. But that's all you have to remember for now. Logos, if you have something unique on your website and you want to give it a name, so later on you can style it in your CSS and JavaScript, then you can use an ID as long as the name is completely unique. When you have multiple things or less important things or things that you want to name the same, then you can use classes for that. Also, very quickly, the character needs to be at least one character long, okay? And you also cannot have spaces or anything like that. Make sure you negate any spaces. Don't do something like this, because what you can also have is two classes on one element. You can have article text and maybe article text active, all right? So these are two separate classes here, all right? That's the difference. So we can maybe style this in one way, and we can style the active in another way if we want. Okay, so without confusing you too much, I'm gonna leave you to it like this, and I promise it's gonna make way more sense when we get to CSS, because right now we're just naming these for no reason and nothing's happening. Okay, so one problem that we might be facing is, let's say we want to create a website. So we add our H1 here. This can be our logo, and then we have our UL with our lists. Maybe this is our contact. So this is our navigation. So let's say home here. Let's say contact, projects, and I don't know, maybe we have a sign up or something. Sign up. Okay, and then let's say we have another section here that we want to write about ourselves. So we can add a H2. This is us. And then we might have a paragraph here as well, norm 20. And then we might want to add some images down below here. So image. And we might have multiple images like this. So what's the problem with this? The problem with this is that everything is kind of chaotic and everything just kind of flows here together. There are no clear, distinct sections between our header here or our navigation or our paragraph here or the image gallery that we have down here below. So we have a HTML element called div, which is mainly used as a wrapper to kind of organize everything together for you. And this is also going to help us tremendously in our CSS. So what you can do is you can wrap all the necessary things that you want inside a div. So maybe this is going to be an image gallery. So rather than having them floating in space, you can wrap them inside a div like this. And now everything is wrapped inside this div. So maybe we can add a class to this and we can call it gallery. So now in our CSS, we can just grab this gallery and position it and modify it the way we want. But it's way easier to do it like this and everything is organized than just have everything floating out here on the screen. Now, one thing that we're gonna get into in just a bit is called the new HTML5 Semantic Elements, which are very important because the difference, the thing with these divs is that they're non-semantic, okay? They don't actually have a special meaning at all. As you can see, it even says it to us. Element has no special meaning. It just represents its children. It can be used with a class, lang, and title to group consecutive elements together. So it has no meaning. Just as we had span before, this is also called a non-semantic element. It doesn't actually tell us anything about this Fujiat here, okay? However, a semantic element, just to kind of give you a good example for you, is something like a form. This also acts as a wrapper to our input elements, like this. But this has semantic meaning to it, rather than a div. A div doesn't say anything to us, but a form is a clear semantic element that has a clear purpose. And what we want to do is we want to replace these empty things with specific semantic elements that have a purpose. So even this thing, this h1 here should be like our header. So we could drop this in a div like this, and we can wrap actually everything here, the whole thing until here. So this can be maybe our class of header, and this UL thing can be our navigation, right? So let's do another, and here's a quick shortcut also to create a class very quickly with a div. You just add a dot and you give it a name, nav, and then hit tab, and that's automatically gonna generate you a div with the class of nav. So I'm gonna wrap everything in here together, and there we go. That's kind of the gist of it. But again, this is kind of problematic because it doesn't actually have any semantic meaning to it. So with HTML5 and the recent years, we got some new elements that perfectly describe what we have on the screen. So rather than wrapping everything in these empty divs that don't mean nothing, we have these semantic elements. So let me show you. Rather than naming this div, I'm gonna get rid of the header. I can just name it header. There we go. And as you can see, you also get a small description. It says the header represents introductory content for its nearest ancestors. Okay, so a header typically contains a group of introductory or navigation aids. So it doesn't actually describe any of your content that you're gonna have on the page later on. Maybe you have a section with some images, maybe you have a blog post and things of that sort. You don't want that in the header. It's just kind of a introductory thing that's gonna help you with navigating and things of that sort. So we have our header here, and a good thing to have is our logo. So there we go. We have our logo, which is a H1, so it's very important. It's a big heading. And rather than naming this a class of nav, what we can do is replace this with nav as well. So this perfectly describes, as you can see, represents a section of the page that links to other pages or parts within the page. So it's specifically made for navigating. Okay? Perfect. So now we are using the correct semantic HTML elements. So let me quickly show you a part of the page like this one that we're eventually going to build out. So we have this part here, and maybe I want to group it together. So rather than making one big div here, we can create a HTML element called section. And a section is usually used just to group together some content, typically with a heading. All right, so it's just a section is a thematic grouping of some content. Okay, so what we can do is we can write section like this, And here, maybe we can have a H2 that's gonna say, here is my image gallery, like this, okay? So that would be a section, and in here we can have all of our images. But typically we use images like this, boom, 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 boom. And there is nothing wrong with this. There is absolutely nothing wrong with using images like this. But recently there has been a new element added that's called figure. And all a figure does, it helps add some visual explanation to an image. All right, because there was no proper way of semantically adding a caption to an image. But now you can do that. You can do a figure like this, and inside this figure, you can add your image. And in here, we can also add something called a fig. Let me not make a mistake here. Fig caption like this. All right, it's not working for some reason. Let's say fig, oh, there we go, fig caption, now it appears. So fig action elements represents a caption or legend for the rest of the contents of the fig caption elements parents figure element. Oh my goodness, that's very long. So we can add a fig caption like this and we can describe the image. So just add a simple caption, let's say nature picture by dev ed. All right, and this is going to be different from the all tag because this actually describes what the image is. So maybe I have a picture with a mountain like that. Okay, so we can also use this figure to add captions, and it's going to be semantically good. Okay, so section, we use it to group in together a part or a section of our website, and also figure that helps us add some semantic to our images with captions. At the end of our website, we also have the footer that typically gives some more information about the website or maybe some social links. So we can use that as well at the bottom of the page. And rather than again making a simple div with a class of footer, we can just use a footer. So let's rename this to footer like this. And in here in a footer, typically you have the author of the document, copyright information, contact information, social links, and things of that sort. So maybe the website was created 2018, copyright, whatever, things of that sort. And maybe you have some social links in here. So maybe you can have a UL with an LIA. All right, so we add an anchor tag and we have some a link to my twitter.com/whatever we have, and this says here Twitter. All right, so this is a footer. We're gonna add this later on to all of our websites as well, but just more information about social links again, and contains just information about the author or about the website. Okay, there's two more I want to cover, and I was quickly Google searching here and I didn't find anything that looks remotely decent, but there's one called A-side. So let's go up here and you write it exactly like this, A-side. And this typically, can I open this image? All right, this A-side is this part of the website, okay, as you can see down here. And all it does is it acts kind of like a sidebar. Okay, it has content that is typically used in a sidebar. And all you have to know is that this sidebar should have content that is related to the surrounding content. So this can act like maybe you have a book here or something, and then you have an A side with all the chapters that you can select. So you can click through the chapters. That can be a perfect A side. But we have an article, and that can look similar to a section. We might have a heading here as well, my little book. And we might have some paragraphs as well, and maybe some images too. So what's the difference between this and this? Well, a section is, well, imagine like we only have this section on our page. Okay, so this section only. Well, this doesn't tell us too much. It doesn't really make any sense, right? But if you have multiple sections and you can see all of it, then it makes more sense, right? You need to have the general scope of the website. However, an article needs to make sense on its own. So you can imagine it as you can read this whole thing in here, and you get the context, it makes perfect sense. You can imagine it as being like a blog post or an article, right? You can read an article, you don't need to know anything else about the website, and it's gonna make perfect sense. Lastly, what I wanna cover is the HTML element called main. And main is used only once in our document, and it covers basically your main content. So not navigation links, not anything else. So basically, for example, on this webpage, the main content would be from here all the way down here. All right, the header and the heading and the navigations and footer that we're gonna add eventually down here has nothing to do with the main content of our website. So here what I would do is I would have my header, okay, that's fine, and then we have our nav, which is fine, and these sections and articles and everything else, we can wrap it once in main because this is the main content of the website. So let's go all the way here and wrap everything up, okay? And actually I'm gonna take this article and cut it out here and add it to these sections. So maybe I have multiple articles like this. All right, perfect. So let's take a look at this again. We have our header with our logo, a navigation. We have our main, which holds the main content of our website. And then we can have a section that holds all the articles. We might have another section that has an image gallery of some sort. And we can add a class of gallery. Now, just to make it clear, that we might still need divs. Just because we have these HTML5 semantic elements doesn't mean that we are not gonna use divs, because in certain cases you might want to group specific things together in some way. So in this gallery we might have a title or a heading, so we can say these are my images, and I might want to group some things in specific ways. So maybe I want to group these two images like this, and maybe I have two more. So I want to group these in different ways than this. I want to maybe manipulate the styling and everything different from these. So what you would do is you can add two divs around these. So let me just make one called, let's say row 1, all right, and group this in row 2. Or maybe I want these to be styled differently. Maybe I want these to have a black background, so I'm gonna name these black. And maybe I wanna have this on a red background, so I'm gonna name these red. So I'm grouping these together just for styling purposes, not really for semantic purposes. So divs are still important and we're gonna use them a lot, but for these big main sections, you should use these HTML5 semantic elements that they provide us. So there we go, these are the HTML5 semantics, and don't worry if you don't get them straight from the start and you don't remember all of these. We're gonna practice when we're gonna build projects, and we're gonna reuse them, and it's gonna make more and more sense. But don't worry if you don't get them at the first try and you don't know where to place things, because even these days people are still debating what is semantically correct and where they should put what. So don't worry too much about it. But what I want to clarify is that we can also reuse these. So headers are actually, you can use it more times. So maybe in an article, you can wrap your introductory elements inside of a header. So maybe the title here can be wrapped inside of a header, and that's perfectly fine. And you can do that, header, and maybe we can also add a subtitle in here, maybe with a header tree. So we can say, this is a book about love, or something like that. And then you can have your text and the rest of your content. So you can still use headers just to give information about the title of your article in here. And also we saw that we can reuse articles as well. We can reuse sections as well. Those figures that we saw. Footer cannot, you only have one footer usually. And main can be only used once as well to represent the main content of your website. Okay, but we're gonna get more practice with this. Okay, I'm not gonna go too deep into this. And yeah, let's continue. Let's keep going, and soon the fun will begin. Hey, congratulations, you have reached the end of the first section. We have finished HTML and we can start with CSS, and this is where things are gonna get fun in just a bit. So the last thing I really want to cover is HTML entities, and this one's very simple. All it is basically characters that you might not have on the keyboard that you want to add in your HTML code, and also certain characters that might break your HTML code if you add it. So for example, on this HTML entities title, I want to add a lesser than sign at the end. Okay, maybe I just want to add it for some reason. Well, if I do that here, it's gonna break the code because this is reserved as a tag, right? This is how we create tags, and the HTML is going to think that, oh, we're trying to add another tag here and it's not complete. That's why we're getting that red underline. So we cannot do that. We cannot add this tag without messing up our HTML code. So what do? We use HTML entity characters. And you can find this, you can look it up online, because there's certain codes that you need to add here to add those characters. So I'm going to show you one. Here is the character for the lesser than sign. It looks like this, and symbol, and then you have LT. And if I save this, as you can see, it appears on the screen. So if you want to look for these specifically, you can just search up a huge list of HTML entities, and you can just copy and paste them. You don't need to, please don't remember these, because there are a lot of them and there's really no point to it. So a lot of them can start with and symbol. So let me show you. So if I go here, we can do the and symbol. I'm not sure if it gives you some kind of autocorrection. Actually, look, it does. All you have to do is add the and symbol and then hold Control space. And when you do that, as you can see, it kind of gives you a short description. Actually, some of them, they're not even clear, I believe, only if I click on it. So yeah, okay, so if you go down with your arrow, then it displays all the characters, each of them what they mean. So there we go. So maybe you can go through of them like this, but I still don't recommend. Maybe I want to add a copyright symbol. That one is actually very simple. You can just say copy like this and hit save, and there we go. We have our copyright symbol. So very simple. These are HTML entities. If you ever find yourself in need of using a character and it might break your HTML code, then search up HTML entities or special characters like the copyright sign that you might use on the website, or maybe euro or pound and things of that sort. If you don't have that on your keyboard, search up the code for the HTML entity on that specific one and you should be good. Okay, that's it. Let's have some fun now. Let's start with CSS. It's gonna be awesome.